Welcome back to Wargaming World and to Northern France on the 25th of August 1914. Setting is France, and the British are continuing to retreat. Following Mons, they've crossed the border from Belgium and now into Northern France and are moving towards Le Cateau, where they will fight an action tomorrow on the 26th. However, today it's a blocking manoeuvre to the Germans as they advance, and to see whether they can hold them up on this railway station and track. Now, this is a chain of command game, and it's at battalion level. We've played a few of these games beforehand, so I've explained the detail of why it's the chain of command rules, which is World War II rules, which I've now added a supplement to, so we can play 1914. If you want to have a look at the detail of that, please feel free to have a look through one or two of the previous videos. I think rather than repeat what I've said beforehand, you can just have a check there. So in terms of the game, we have the British at this end. They'll look to hold back the Germans as long as they can, and the Germans will be approaching naturally from the other end here, and to see whether they can push through the British as quickly as possible. Now, before we do the patrol phase, just to mention about the forces themselves. Essentially, it's going to be a 2-to-1 engagement, so therefore the Germans are going to have twice as many troops as the British. The challenge in the previous games we've played is that although the Germans have outnumbered the British, it's been very difficult to coordinate the forces, so that might not necessarily be a huge advantage. So the actual forces itself will be, the British will hold 3 infantry battalions and 1 cavalry. They'll also have 1 machine gun section. The Germans therefore will have 6 infantry, 2 cavalry, 2 machine guns. But also what I'm going to deploy is some indirect artillery fire. Particularly if we look at Le Cateau, it really was an artillery engagement, where the fact that the British deployed their artillery in forward positions meant that their artillery took quite a pounding in terms of casualties. So I'm going to, for the first turn, have a bit of a rolling barrage from the Germans. I'll have it as a bit of a random roll, and to see the impact of that. So the idea is it pins the British as they come onto the table. I will in turn have a British pre-game barrage, so it interrupts the Germans. But I want to see if over the first turn we can get some figures on the board, but in a fairly restricted manner. So let's just have a look and see how that rolls out. Taking a very brief look at the forces themselves, we have the British infantry. So we have regiments of the Worcesters, the Middlesex Regiment, and we've also got some Highlanders. They're going to be aggressive fighters. We've got some mounted infantry for the British and the machine gun section. We'll also add in a field gun as well. We know that the British use their artillery in forward positions, so therefore I'll add one onto the tabletop, and we'll just have 1 reserve for the British to come on the second turn, which we'll have as the Royal Scots. The Germans will have a combination of regular infantry and Jaegers. One of the Jaeger battalions will be an elite force. We'll have machine gun teams. We'll have 2 Lancer cavalry squadrons. But what we'll also do is we'll add a red dice to the Germans, so we get a little bit more control. And so I'm going to have 2 senior leaders for the Germans and just 1 for the British. So let's see how that affects them, and to see how we progress. So let's start with the patrol phase. Let's have a quick look at force morale just outside the station. And so 3s and 4s means that both forces will start with a force morale of 9. Okay, so the patrol phase. The delaying action, which is what we're playing here, means that the British start at this end, and you have a setup where there is like a shaded area, if you see the scenarios, where we have 36 inches by 6 inches just at the front here, in front of the river, where the British will set up with 3 patrol markers. Now, once the patrol phase has been completed, one of the jump-off points must be in this particular area, and for victory, the Germans need to take that jump-off point or reduce the British down to 0 on force morale. The Germans at the other end start with 4 patrol markers in the middle here, just by the railway track, and will advance as normal. Right, the patrol phase ends here. So we've got the, you can see the Germans just on the left flank, and as we roll across the railway line, we've got 2 more for the Germans, with one of the 3 British patrol markers there by the tree, and right at the end there we can see that we've got one of the British here and the German there. Right, so let's start by taking a look at the advancing Germans. I've marked each of the jump-off points just with an infantryman, so we can see that on the left flank we've got 1 jump-off point here, and we've got that's the original patrol marker there, and this is the jump-off point. The second is much further across the table, and it's here just before the station, and the third is just at the back of these ruined houses. The British jump-off point, it's much further back, so this is the original patrol marker here, the cavalryman, and the first of the jump-off points is back here behind the cover of the hedge and the wood. Second jump-off point is just back here, just behind the wall there of the farm buildings. And finally, and the objective for the Germans, is that we've got the jump-off point here, right at the back by the watermill. Right, just before we start, we've got our British and German headquarters and our force morale tracker. So it's 9 each for both the British and the Germans. And as I mentioned right at the start, we've got a German barrage coming. So here we've got the forward observers just in this church. Okay, right, always a favourite for me, the start of the game. First phase, it's the attackers, it's the Germans. And 1 for the chain of command dice, and it would be everything from senior leaders, so we can't do a great deal with that. Well, I'm going to see if I can bring the senior leader on. The British do have a pre-game barrage, so I need a 4, 5 and 6 to get on the table. Yes, he can. And there we go, so we've just got our senior leader up here observing from the building. Bit of a false start there for the Germans, so we've got the British first phase, and a double phase, and 2 for the chain of command dice, and a 3 if the British want to do anything. I'm going to pass bringing anything on for the British, so we have our second phase and we reduce the die by 1. So 2 3s and a 2. It really would be a great roll to bring everything on, but I'm going to pass again over to the Germans. Okay, so we've got 3 2s and a 4. I've realised I've made an error. I haven't rolled the red dice for the Germans in their first phase or in this one, so I'm just going to roll 2 dice and see what we get, and it's 2 1s, and that's quite significant. So in the first phase, what I should have done is to contact the battery, which we now have, and therefore with the second one we've now dropped the ranging shot. So with the ranging shot, this is where I want it to land, so let's see whether there's any deviation. That's an 11, which means it drops right there. So with that slight error sorted, we now have 3 2s. We want to bring on 3 battalions, but can they get on with the British barrage? No, they can't. Right, so no movement, so back to the British. Another double phase and another 2, 3 and 2. British is going to pass again. 4 2 1s and a 2. Let's have a think there. Nope, going to pass over to the Germans. Wasting some good rolls there. Over to the Germans. Right, okay. 1 to the chain of command dice, takes it up to 2, and then we've got 2 1s and 2 3s. Right, we'll see if we can bring on a couple of battalions and possibly a machine gun team as well, but let's first of all have a look and see where we go with the artillery. Right, we've done a ranging shot, so we add 1 to this dice. Oh well, it's right on the money. Right, so the barrage starts here, and you can see with all the markers there, so it's all the way up to the start of that first British jump-off point. But yeah, it's right on the money. So I've got 2 3s and a 1 remaining. So the red dice is going to be the 1, which I'm going to try and bring on a machine gun team, and the other 2 are battalions. But we need 4 5s and 6s to get on, and everybody's on. Okay, so with the 2 3s and the 1, the machine gun and the 2 battalions start pouring out of this jump-off point. There's nothing more we can do. We can't fire at anybody. So yep, that's the end of the German phase. Okay, so it's the British phase. And 2 for the chain of command dice. That takes it up to 4, which might be helpful for trying to end this barrage. 4 and a 3. The British are not looking to show their hand as yet. So what have we got here? We've got 2 5s, takes the German chain of command dice up to 4 as well. We've got 2 4s and a 1. Well, with a 1, I think we're going to move this barrage 6 inches further forward. Right, so that's just moved further forward. Haven't really been able to move the Germans forward, but we'll see what the British do on their phase. 1 more for the chain of command dice, takes it to 5, and then 2 1s, a 2 and a 3. Germans are still at a considerable distance, so for that reason we'll pass again with the British and move on to the Germans, see if we can get something more useful. Now they've got a double phase, that's certainly helpful. I've got a 2, a 3 and 2 4s. Right, with the 2 I'm going to try and bring on a new battalion, and successful. With the 3 I'm going to move this battalion at the double. We've got a 3, so the junior leader will take off a point of shock once it's moved, and this is where the other unit has come on. 3 dice for the movement. What have we got there? So we've got 9 12 inches. Right, that's a good move for that battalion. So now we've got a second phase for the Germans. Drop down 1 dice, and we get some good rolls there. So 2 3s, a 2 and a 1. Right, with a 2 I'm going to see if I can get another unit on the table. No, we can't. Do the same again with the 3 here to move at the double. That's a good roll again, 14. Same again over here, we're going to move at the double. Not bad either, that's 10 inches. So 2 excellent moves here for the Germans, moving down the track. And with a 1, I'm going to move this machine gun team. 10 inches. British phase. And there's a 5 to take it to 1 full chain of command dice, 2 2s and a 3. So with a 5, the British could end the turn and get rid of the barrage. However, that's not going to help them in this phase to see whether they can act. So it's going to be challenging to engage the Germans as they advance. Right, with a 3, I've deployed the Middlesex regiments here in the barrage, because ultimately I'm going to lose the jump-off point to the Germans as soon as the barrage is lifted. and we really need to get rid of that to get engaged. So they're going to be pinned, and they'll also take casualties, but it might just mean that they can hold on to the jump off point. And with a 2, I've also deployed the Worcesters as well, so they can come in some support they've got there from the jump off point, which is next to the watermill. Okay, so I'm going to say it's the 77mm that are dropping down on the British, so it means they've got 7 dice. The way you do it is to do it as effective range, so it's 7 dice at 5s and 6s, and so they take 2 hits. They reduce 1 level of cover, so it's as if they're in the open, so we've got 2 dice as if they're in the open, and that's 1 point of shock. So really it's not too bad for them. They've got 1 point of shock, but they are pinned whilst under the barrage. However, the British have got a full chain of command dice, so we're going to remove the barrage. Okay, German phase. Right, 2 4s, 2 2s and a 3. Right, with the 2, we brought on a new battalion, the 145th. With a 4, the senior leader is going to order this section, this battalion I should say, to move at the double. Then further across on the table here, we've got this battalion, which is going to just move normally with the 2. And then finally we have this battalion here with the 3. So this is going to fire at half effect and then just move 1d6 to see if it gets close enough to fight with this unit of this battalion. First of all, I'm going to do the movements at the double, which is 10 inches for the battalion, which was ordered by this senior leader. And that's where they get to. Battalion is going over the hedge. We'll go 6 inches. We get rid of the 4 because it's going over broken ground, and that's where they get to. Here we've got 5 firing at close range, needing 4s, 5s and 6s, and that's 2 hits. British in soft cover. But that's 1 kill. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Now this unit move 1d6, 5 inches. So by moving 5 inches with 1d6, they're close enough to fight. So we have our first hand-to-hand fight. Right, so the first engagement, so we'll just go through the numbers. The Germans get 9 dice for 9 men and 2 for the junior leader. The British, remember, just lost a man, so they only have 8, 2 for the junior leader. They get 1 dice because the Germans moved 1 dice for the 5 inches that they moved. And they're also defending light cover, so they get 1 dice for every 3 that they've already got, so they get an additional 3. So in total, the British fighting with 14 and the Germans with 11. So what you're looking out for is 5s and 6s are kills, 6 is an additional point of shock. So that's a very good attack from the Germans. So they have 7 kills there, with 5 being the additional points of shock. Question is, can the British hold their ground? So the answer is no. The Germans win by 2. So the British are thrown back by 9 inches. They also need to take an additional point of shock because of being thrown back. So that would take them to 2 points of shock. But they also took 5 points of shock in the engagement, so they've got 7 points of shock in total. British also took 7 casualties. So we know that in that one of them is the leader, and so we just need to see what happens to him. And he gets a light wound and loses 1 command. Now there's worse to come, because we're now down to 3 men for the British with 7 points of shock, which means they automatically break. So they'll move 2d6 plus 6 directly away from the enemy. 2d6 plus 6. So they move 13 inches away. So the Middlesex Regiment have ended up all the way over here. So the Germans lost 5 men. Was it the leader? Yes, it was. And what happened to him? He was knocked unconscious. So the Germans have consolidated the position. They take 2 points of shock, and we need to do a bad thing in terms of the injury to the junior leader. However, they've also taken the jump-off point. Right, so a few bad things have happened there. So let's just start with the Germans. We have a junior leader wounded, 3. I think that's a -1 to the Germans. Then the British had a section break. 1 is a -1, and a junior leader wounded. 3 again, a -1. So I think that's -2 to the British and -1 to the Germans. Just double check. Yep, feel like the British somehow got away with one there. So the Germans are down to 8, British down to 7. See how the British can recover. It's their phase. And a double phase, a 2, a 3 and a 4. Right, okay. I haven't got a 4 because I haven't got a British senior leader on the board yet. And so with a 3 here, I'm going to use the single command that the junior leader has to reduce a point of shock. So it goes down from 7 to 6. If we can begin to get that down, it means ultimately we don't lose both a section and a junior leader if the turn ends. So there's a lot of emphasis on that, but hopefully it helps for the force morale. So there's a reason to do it. And then with this battalion, we're going to fire on the Germans here, see if they can get them moved. Okay, so the Worcesters firing at close range, needing 4s. Like a few hits there, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits. So Germans in the open, 3, 4 is shock, 5, 6 is a kill. And that just looks like 2 points of shock. Underwhelming is the way I would summarise that. Right, okay, 4 dice for the next British phase. 2 2s, a 4 and a 5. So the first, the chain of command dice, and we'll see what happens next. So quite a lot happening here. So I brought on the senior leader, the British senior leader. So we have, so with a 4, he's got 3 commands. So he's going to order the Worcesters to fire, and then he's also going to take 2 points of shock off the unit here to take them down to 4. With one of the 2s, we brought in our mounted infantry who will fire, and then all over this side here we have Highlanders with a 2, and they will fire also on the Germans advancing here. Start with the Highlanders over here. They're within 18 inches, so it's 4s, 5s and 6s. And looks like we've got 4 hits. Germans advancing in the open, and just a point of shock. So all the firing now is here onto this German unit. We're going to start off with the 5 mounted infantry, 4, 5s and 6s, and that looks like 3 hits. Germans in the open, and 2 points of shock. And finally the Worcesters, 9 dice, needing 4, 5s and 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. And again, just shock. 1 more shock, taking that unit up to 7. So with 7 shock, they'll be pinned. Well, the British have deployed, but I really don't think that's enough in what they need here in this game. Anyway, that's a waste of the red dice, and we've got a 3, a rogue 3 that's gone over there. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and a 4. Right, with a 1, I'm going to move the machine gun in closest support. The 2 means I'm going to move this unit here at the double. Also over here, the 3, going to move that at the double. The junior leader is going to take a point of shock off, so they'll remain at 2 shock. So therefore, we'll have to take 2 inches off the move itself. And then we've got a 4. All the senior leader can do is to order this unit to move at the double. Right, machine gun first, ignore the lowest dice, so move 6 inches. Unit where we lose 2 inches in the move, we get 8 inches. Unit ordered by the senior leader, should say, they only move 7 inches. So far we've had the machine gun move, we've had this battalion move, This one moved forward, and then the final one is here. 3 dice, and they move 10 inches. So taking a quick look at the game, the Germans started with a barrage which seemed to make a good effect. They've now stormed and taken the first jump off point. They're struggling a little because that unit there are pinned. However, there's plenty of support coming behind them, so the Germans are making some good advancement here, and their target is the jump off point on the watermill. It's been defended by the Worcesters, by the mounted infantry. We've got some Highlanders just over on the left flank, and there's also a reserve of Royal Scots. In terms of the force morale, Germans on 8, the British on 7. So the game is very close. And it's the British phase. 2, 3, 3 and a 4. Well, we've got some luxuries with that roll. I'm not bringing on any reserves at the moment, so we can fire with the Worcesters, with the mounted infantry. The 4 for the senior leader means you can take 3 points of shock off the unit here, which means it goes down to 1 point of shock. And hiding behind the trees, we've got the Highlanders, and with the 2, I'm going to move them further up towards the Germans. Let's start with the Highlanders, so it's 2d6 of movement. That's 11. Right, the Highlanders have moved, well, 11 inches. It's much further than I really intended for them to go, but in actual fact it plugs a gap. They're not within 4 inches of this unit, or this battalion I should say, nor of this one, so they're not in any hand-to-hand fighting, so they're just in that position. Right, both the Worcesters and the mounted infantry are going to fire at this battalion. They are pinned, therefore it's as if they are in soft cover, but yeah, they've been taking quite a lot of fire, but they're still there, so let's just see how the British go. Mounted infantry needing 4s. 2 hits, 5 shock, 6 to kill, and that's 1 kill and 1 point of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Worcester's needing 4, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Again, 4, 5 is shock, 6 to kill, that's 1 point of shock. Well, remarkably, they're still there, because they have 9 points of shock. There's 5 men, it's not double, and although the junior leader is still unconscious, that's still a reasonable state of play, so they're holding that position. German phase. Right, it's a wasted 5 on the red. However, we've got 3 2s, a 1 and a 4. Okay, I'm going to put the 1 and the 2 together to make it a 3. We're then going to take a point of shock off this unit, and then the officer, the junior leader, is going to order that unit, the battalion, to fire at the Scots there. The 2 means we're going to move this unit. The senior leader is going to order this unit to move again, and then he himself is going to move out of that particular building, move down. We'll have to roll to see how far he can get. And then finally, with the remaining 2, I've brought in another unit. This is an elite Jaeger unit, so it is 9 inches away from the jump off point. Right, this battalion firing at the Scots, needing 4s, 10 dice. Looks like we've got 3, 4 hits, 4 in the open. Dice there. And 2 points of shock. This unit now going to move at the double, so 3 dice. That's 11. I think it's got 1 point of shock, so it's only 10 inches. This unit at the front, just in front of the Jaegers there, they need to again move at the double. We've got 1 point of shock, so it's -1 from this. So we have 9 inches in total. Finally, the movement of the senior leader, 5 inches. I'm going to say you can get down to the front door of the building that he's standing at the moment on the first floor. Right, British phase. So 5 is one for the chain of command dice, taking it to 2, and then we've got 2 1s and 2 3s. Right. The junior leader is going to take a point of shock off the Highlanders here, and then they're going to move 1d6 towards the infantry here, and expect, I think, to reach them. I've also brought on, with a 1, a British field gun, and so that's going to fire into this unit. I've then got a 1 and a 3, so I'm going to get the senior leader to order a couple of things, but I'm going to see how we go on first of all with the fighting and the firing. Right, this is a 13 pounder, needing 4s, 6 dice. And that's 5 hits, reducing cover by 1. It's as if the unit are in the open, and we've got 1 kill, 2 kills. Is it the leader? No, it's not. Right, so eventually, with the introduction of a bit of hardware, this battalion is going to break. 2d6 plus 6, so 12 inches. Now I'm going to give this battalion the benefit of the doubt so that it doesn't collide into this advancing one, but they've now broken, and that means the jump off point is still there because it wasn't an end of turn at all, so that the British didn't lose it. So fairly fortunate about that. Over here we've reduced the shock by 1, and we need 1d6 for the movements of the Highlanders. 5 inches, so that's definitely combat. Right, first order is the senior leader is going to order the mounted infantry, or dismounted as they are, to move at the double towards the jump off point. 3d6, 12 inches. Right, it's a good roll, although they will take 1 point of shock. They've now re-secured the British jump off point. And so with the other 2 commands, he's going to take the point of shock off that unit there, the small one, and he's also going to order this, the Worcesters, to move towards the jump off point. They'll have 2d6, taking 1 off the smaller number because of the hedge. Let's roll that now. There we go. Oh, it's only 2 inches. It's a very modest move, but it's been a very successful phase for the British. So, last thing to do here is combat with the Highlanders. Just before I do the fighting, the Highlanders, I need to do one bad thing there because it was a section breaks for the Germans. And that's a 2, that might just be a -1. Yeah, section breaks sees the Germans down to 7, so both sides are now on 7. Okay, so down to the fighting. Right, the British, we've got 9 men as Highlanders. You get 2 for the command of the junior leader, and 3 because the Highlanders are aggressive fighters. Germans likewise have 9 men, 2 for the junior leader, and they also get 1 because the Highlanders moved 1d6 into action. So when we roll, 5s and 6s is a kill, 6 is an additional point of shock, and then we need to calculate whether the junior leaders have been killed. Right, Highlanders first, let's see how they go. That's 7 in total. We know that the junior leader's one of the casualties, but whether he's killed or not we'll have to work out, and there's 4 additional points of shock. So let's see how the Germans go on. German reply. Right, it's turned out to be a terrible roll for the Germans. 2 casualties for the British with 1 point of shock. I'm going to work out the impact on the Highlanders, whether it's the junior leader first and then the rest for the Germans, because it's a crushing defeat. It is the junior leader, and what happens to him? He takes a wound. So junior leader wounded, it's a bad thing for the British. A 3, I think, is a -1. Yeah, the British are down to 6 with the junior leader wounded. The Germans lost 7 men. 1 we know is a casualty to the junior leader. So let's see what happens to him. He's killed. Well, that was terrible for the Germans. The battalion itself flees, and it's now got 9 shock with 3 men, and so it's broken. We need to roll for that, and of course we have a junior leader killed. So junior leader killed with a 3, and that might be a -1, and section breaks 2 is a -1. Yep, so there are, it was -2 in total, so the Germans are down to down to 5. Well, what an extraordinary phase, and what a turn of events. The British have really turned it round. The jump off point has been regained. The Highlanders have really destroyed a battalion, really pushed them back. The Germans are still coming. We've got well, 3 battalions advancing, but now the British have taken themselves in a solid position. So what happens next? We're over to the Germans. It's their phase. Okay, a waste on the red dice, but everything else is pretty handy. So we've got 2 1s, 4 and 2 3s. Right, lots happening here. Now with a 1, the forward observers are going to call in the battery again, see if we can get a second barrage. 4, going to move the senior leader to these Jaegers. The Jaegers are then going to move, he's then going to order them to move at the double, and he'll also take a point of shock off once that's completed. With a 3, I'm going to move this unit, just swing it across slightly, going to fire at the Highlanders at half effect because they've moved. 3 here, we're going to take a point of shock off and fire at the Highlanders. Finally, with the 1, we're going to move this machine gun. Right, Jaegers at the double. Let's see how far they go. Not that far, 8 inches. Right, so the movement is that the Jaegers have now moved up here. We've got the senior leader with them. This unit have now wheeled slightly, and as I say, we're going to fire in a minute at the Highlanders, half effect. They've taken the point of shock off, and we've moved this machine gun team. Right, the unit who moved, we would have 5, but they got 2 points of shock, so we've got 4 dice needing 4s, and that's 2 hits. And the Highlanders are in the open. 1 killed and 1 point of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. This battalion, I'm going to say that there's 8 that can fire, again needing 4s. And we've got 5 hits there, again in the open. And so we've got 1 kill and 2 points of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Right, so they lost a couple of men there, and they're on 5 shock in total. British phase. 1 for the chain of command dice, takes it up to 3. We've got a 1, a 2 and a 4. Right, with a 1, I've brought in the machine gun, it's going to fire in a second. With a 2, brought in the Royal Scots, they're going to fire at the Jaegers, and I'll put the 2 trees back in a second just to show you where they are. And with the 4, we've got our senior leader. He's going to order the Worcesters to move up, and he's also going to move himself and move this small battalion, the Middlesex, forward. Right, let's move the Worcesters. We'll remove the lowest of the dice, so 3 inches forward. Senior leader moves 2d6, 7 inches. Middlesex, move 11. So before we fire, these are the new positions. Worcesters have moved up. Middlesex have now gone in front of the bridge, and the senior leader is now just advanced with the Worcesters. Right, the machine gun is firing at its German counterpart with 6 dice, getting 4s to hit, and that's 4 hits. The machine gun is close to 2, or within 4 inches I should say, of 2 battalions. The red dice will be the one of the depleted battalion, the black dice of the one at full order, and 2 dice again for the machine gun. They're all in the open. So that looks like a point of shock to the machine gun, an additional point of shock to the depleted unit, and 1 killed in the other battalion. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Royal Scots firing at the Jaegers, needing 5s, 9 dice. And we've got 2 hits there. Green dice is the Jaegers, the red dice is on the retreating battalion in front of it, which takes another point of shock. Alright, German phase. And we needed a 1 to try and bring the artillery back in, and we haven't got it. We've got 1 for the chain of command dice, so we can take that up to 5. And then we have 2 4s and 2 2s. Getting to desperate measures for the Germans. So with a 4, we're going to move on these Jaegers at the double with the senior leader. So he'll take off a point of shock. So they'll be able to move that and in desperate times we've now brought on the new, or the second senior leader with the second 4. With the 2 2s, we're going to fire with both of these battalions again at the Highlanders. Move these Jaegers at the double. 10 inches. Right, the first unit firing at the Highlanders is this one. We've got 2 points of shock, so we're down to 8 dice. Needing 4s. 1, 2, 3, 3. Highlanders in the open. 1 point of shock. Dice again with this unit. Better roll. We've got 5 hits. Getting out in the open. What's the result of that? That looks more promising for the Germans. That looks 2 killed, 2 points of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Right, Highlanders are up to 8 with shock with 5 men. They don't break yet, but they are certainly pinned. Again, the Germans coming closer in now with 3 battalions in good order, and we've now got the Highlanders in some pretty bad shape. So yeah, can the British hold on? Right, British phase. So we've got 2 4s, so it's a waste because we only have 1 senior leader, and so we've got a senior leader, 2 3s. Right, with the 3s we're going to move the Royal Scots, get them in a position to support the Highlanders here from the Jaegers. 3 are going to move the units here, the mounted infantry. They're going to move and fire at half effect. Senior leader is going to order the Worcesters to move and move himself. Let's start with the Worcesters. 4 inches, and senior leader movement. 10 inches, although I know the point at which I want to stop. So Royal Scots ignoring the lowest dice. Oh, that's rubbish. 1 inch. Right, so the only firing I'm doing is actually the mounted infantry, 3 dice, firing at the machine gun here. Needing 4s. 2 hits. 1 on the machine gun and 1 on the regiment locally, but that's 2 killed, 1 from each unit. Is it the leader amongst the large battalion? No, it isn't. So the machine gun team is down to 1 man, which means it's at half effect. German phase. There's the 1. So we've got a 1, 2, 3 and a 4. Right, with the 1 we're going to see if we can bring the battery back in. We've requested it, and we're going to see what the response is here. So let's roll the dice. That's not great. I think that it's not available for this phase, but we can see if we can get it next phase. I'll double check that. Yeah, the battery's not available at the second, so we'll have to see if we can get it next phase. Right, with a 4, the senior leader is going to order the Jaegers and both of these units, both of these battalions, to fire at the Highlanders. Now, they are at the moment pinned, so it's going to help them in terms of giving them effectively soft cover. But with all 3 battalions firing, this could be very nasty. Right, Jaegers starting, needing a 4. A 4 and a 3 come off there, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. 4, 5 and shock, 6 to kill. 2 points of shock and 1 kill. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Right, at that point they break. I know the other units we're going to fire, but although they've been ordered, they've reacted as soon as they started taking casualties, so that's 2d6 plus 6 away. So that's 12 inches. A bad thing with section breaks is a 3, which I think is a -1. Actually, I'm incorrect. Section breaks on a 3 is a -2, so the British are down to 4. Right, well, the senior leader now has 2 commands left, so he's going to order both of these battalions now to fire on the Royal Scots as they're beginning to advance. With a 3, I'm also going to take 2 points of shock off from this battalion. With a 2, so I'm going to see whether I can bring on another Jaeger unit. No, we can't. Couldn't bring those Jaegers on because with both senior leaders on the board, I needed to roll for that there. So anyway, we need 5s with the 1st Battalion firing at the Royal Scots, and they've that's 4 hits. That's 4 in the open, and that's 1 kill. Need to see, is that the leader? No, it isn't. Then we've got 7 dice of the next battalion, needing 5s, just the 1 hit. See the impact of that. Another kill. So is that the leader this time? No, it isn't. Okay, this is what I would suggest is the exam question for the British player. Knowing that this game is a delaying action, the British have now got 4 on their force morale and are holding this position, but they're in a perilous situation. Therefore, my question to you would be, what would you do here? Now, there are some opportunities potentially to reduce the German force morale, which is on 5, but it's really fairly tricky about what you might do. If you look on the other side here, the Royal Scots, they've already taken 2 casualties. And then here at the front we've got a machine gun, but it's lightly defended with the mounted infantry. The Highlanders are already retreating. But we do have a full battalion with the Worcesters. In the background there we've got a field gun. So if you've got some thoughts about what that might be, at the end of the video why not put some suggestions in the YouTube comments, or if you want to add some detail and some real detailed thought, why don't you go onto the Facebook group of Chain of Command World War I and add some thoughts there. Maybe we can have a bit of a discussion around it. Now I'm going to see how the British go with their phase. Still 5 dice, and we have a double phase. We've got 1 for the chain of command, so that takes it up to 4, and a 2 and a 3. Okay, with the 2 I'm going to withdraw the Royal Scots, get them back into some kind of cover. With the 3 we've got the Worcesters in position, so they're going to be able to fire here on the machine gun team. Scots first, losing lowest dice, 6 inches, not a problem. Worcester's firing at the machine gun team, needing 4s. Not very much there, that's just 3 hits. Right, so green dice is going to be the machine gun, blue dice is going to be the small battalion, black is the larger battalion. They're all in the open, so the machine gun team is killed because it was down to 1 man, so we'll have to take a bad thing for that. And it's a point of shock for both of the other 2 teams. Okay, support unit killed. 2 is a -1, which takes the Germans down to 4 also. So it's the Germans, it's the British second phase, but with 4 dice. 2 3s and a 2. Right, so 2 3s and a 2. So with the 3 we're going to get the Royal Scots to fire at the Jaegers. Advancing up here, we're going to add 2 dice because we're going to get 5 rounds rapid. So that means we'll have 9 dice in total. The 2 means we're going to fire with the 5 rifles here. Again at this, not again, but at this unit here, this battalion nearest to us. And it's going to be the Worcesters who are going to fire at the same target, and again with the 5 round rapid, which gives us 11 dice firing. Worcesters first of all, needing 4s. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. Both battalions in the open. The blue are for the smaller battalion, which have 2 killed, and there's 3 shock, the unit behind it. For this battalion, it literally has 2 men and the junior leader, so we need to test whether it's him again. 1 or 2, yes it is. And what happens to him? Now 2 means he will be knocked unconscious. He already is unconscious, but that's the rule. So yeah, he's just very badly injured. This time we've got 5 mounted infantry firing at the same target, needing 4s, and we have a 6 there that's just popped out, so we've got 3 hits. Light cover this time, and that would mean 1 point of shock to the smaller battalion. Then over there we've got our Royal Scots, so the Royal Scots needing 5s this time to hit the Jaegers. Now it looks like 4 hits. Sorry, that's my mistake. Should have been 6s, because remembering of course that the Jaegers are elite, so let's just test that 1 dice. It is still a kill. Is it the leader? No it isn't. German phase. Right, so it's a waste of the red dice. So we've got 2 1s and 2 3s. Right, so let's see if we can bring in the battery again. That's a 3. I think that's also not for this phase. Yeah, we can't bring it on this phase. We can have another go next phase. Okay, the first 3, I'm going to take off 2 points of shock from this battalion, so it's down to 3 shock. And with the 4, the senior leader is going to order all 3 of these nearest battalions to advance. The Jaegers are going to advance at the double. Now they've already got 2 points of shock, so that means, and they'll get an additional point of shock from this, I guess, but anyway, we have 9 inches further forward. This battalion go 2d6, minus 3 for their existing shock. So that's 4 inches. Finally 2 inches for this battalion. Sorry, 2 dice, not 2 inches. 7 inches in total. And so we've got 3 German battalions now descending onto the British. None of these are within 4 inches. So we'll see how the British react. And it's their phase. Double phase, very useful. 2, 3 and 4. Right, with the 3 we're going to move the Royal Scots at the double in a similar way that the Highlanders did. So we're going to move them in this direction. We've then got the senior leader, so he's going to take a point of shock off the mounted infantry, order them to fire and order the machine gun to fire. Then finally with the 2 we're going to move these Worcesters up towards the front, see if they can confront these 3 battalions as they advance. Let's move the Worcesters first, 7 inches. Then got the Royal Scots, 8 inches. Mounted infantry firing at the Jaegers, needing 4s, 3 hits. In the open, 1 kill, 1 point of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Machine gun firing here, straight into this battalion at the front there. Needing 4s. That's 5 hits. Light cover. That's light cover, so it's 1 kill, and it's also 3 points of shock. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Okay, so you might remember it's a British phase. It was a double phase. So we've just got 4 dice. 1 for the chain of command dice takes it up to 5, and then we've got 2 1s and a 3. Right, with a 1, the machine gun's going to fire at the unit which are coming through the trees, and then we've got a 1 and a 3, so we've got 4 in total. So the senior leader is going to order the mounted infantry to move, and then the Worcesters to move up in a better defensive position, and then we're going to order the Royal Scots to fire. Not all of them can fire, but 6 dice anyway. Machine gun needing 4s. That's 4 hits, 4, 5 for shock, 6 to kill. Now that's 3 points of shock and a kill. So is it the leader? No, it isn't. So this battalion at the front have now got 9 points of shock, and they're now pinned in that position. So 2 dice, get the mounted infantry out of the way. That's 6 inches. I'll roll 1 inch for the Worcesters. Bit of a risk, I need to make sure they're in the right position. But if I do so, they can also fire at half effect. 2 inches. So I've got the mounted infantry out of the way, but unfortunately the Worcesters only moved a couple of inches, so really I'm going to say that I'm only going to allow 2 dice to fire. 5s to hit the Jaegers, 1 hit, and the result of that is 1 kill. So it was worth doing. Is it the leader? Yes, it is. Now we've got a junior leader and the senior leader. So 1, 2, 3, it's the junior. It's the junior, and what happens to him? He loses a command. It's also 1 bad thing, so that's a 5. That's certainly going to be at least a -1. Well, it was most certainly worth doing. The Germans go down by 1, down to 3. Royal Scots firing, needing 5s to hit the Jaegers, and that's just 1 hit. And that is 1 point of shock. So incredibly, the game swings back towards the British with a double phase. We've held back this battalion, and we've got the Jaegers and another battalion behind them, seeing if they can come and attack here, but they're under pressure. Now, with the Germans down to 3 dice, it should actually, when they went down to 4, I should have taken 1 dice off, but I didn't. So here we've just got 3 dice, and I'm going to keep the red dice until they go down to 2, and at that point they would lose a further dice and the red dice. Right, so German phase with 3 of the original dice and the red dice as well. Let's see what we get. Well, we get it's a waste with the red dice. It's a double phase, which is helpful, and we have a 4 for the senior leader. Right, the senior leader is going to take a point of shock off the Jaegers, order them to fire, and then the battalion behind them is to move past them. So that'll be the 3 commands. Before we do the Jaegers, let's roll 2d6 to see how far we go with the other units. So 6 inches. 8 Jaegers firing at the Royal Scots, needing 4s. 1, 2, 3 hits. Royal Scots in the open. That's a kill and a shock. Is it the junior leader? No, it isn't. So it's the German second phase, so we drop a dice. So we have 2 of the normal dice and 1 of the red dice. What do we get? 1 for the chain of command dice, which takes it to a full chain of command, so that might be useful. And then we have 2 2s. Senior leader is going to order the Jaegers to fire again at the Royal Scots. Then he's going to move himself and join this battalion, and then they're going to move to be close enough to attack the Worcesters here. Firing at the Royal Scots, needing 4s. 3 again. Apologies. That was 4. In the open. Kill and 2 points of shock. Is it the leader? No. Right. That's a move from the Germans. They're within 4 inches. So this could be the game. Right. So this is where the game's going to be won and lost, I think. So let's just talk through what we've got. The Germans have 9 men. They have a senior leader and they have a junior leader. The British have 9 men also. They also have a junior leader. Now, the Germans moved 1d6, so we get 1 for that. And then because they are defending light cover, they get 1 for every 3 that the British have already got. So therefore they get an additional 4. So the British are 2 up on the dice. When we roll, 5s and 6s a kill, 6 is an additional point of shock. Germans first in the attack. That is a very, very modest result. 3 casualties. 2 points of shock. So Worcester's holding the line. Right, so 7 casualties by the British. They win by 4, and therefore the Germans flee. Now let's just see if the British, they took 3 casualties. Was one of them the junior leader? No, it wasn't. Now the Germans definitely did take a hit with the senior leader. With the officers. Was it the senior leader or the junior? So senior leader is 4, 5, 6. Yes, it was. And what happened to him? He loses a command initiative, so he goes down to 2. But rather than take a bad thing, I'm going to use a chain of command dice so that we don't need to test that. The Germans will need to test for section breaks though, because obviously they have withdrawn very much at the double. So I think that's a -1 to take them to 2. In fact, it's a -2, so the Germans are now down to 1. Right, so we've seen the senior leader and this battalion flee, and much as the other battalion next to them, they're moving back at pace. 2 more battalions down here. One is really shattered, the other is pinned, and then we have the Jaegers here on the other side, and the Germans are left with 1 dice. I think really the only thing that's going to save them here is if I roll a 1 and we can get the barrage going. No, we can't. We've got a 3. Right, with the 3, these Jaegers are going to attack the Royal Scots. I'm going to roll 2d6 to make sure I get there. 3 inches. As if to sum up the game, that was a disastrous roll. 3 on 2d6 means that they're actually 5 inches away. And so they're not near enough either from the Royal Scots or from the Worcesters, but they're most certainly going to be a target in the next phase, which is the British phase. 1 for the chain of command dice, which means the British have got a full chain of command dice, 4 and 2 2s. Right, with a 4, I'm going to take 3 points of shock off the Highlanders here, which takes them down to 7 for their shock. 2 2s means the Worcesters and then the Royal Scots are going to fire at the Jaegers. Worcester's needing 5s, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Jaegers in the open. That means that's 3 points of shock. Royal Scots. Needing 5s. 2 hits. That's no effect. Right, at this point, although the Germans are still on 1, rather than draw things out, I don't see any way that the Germans can get anything out of this game. So, in terms of the game, it's a British victory. Well, a delaying action and success for the British. That was a game where it really could have gone either way. The Germans were unfortunate, and I think the British got some double phases just at the right time. I tried to combine the German attack in a better way. I have to look at that again, but yeah, I think it's been a really enjoyable game, and yes, it's a success for the British the day before they fight at Le Cateau. Now, if you have any thoughts about the game, any ideas, any suggestions, then please put some comments on the YouTube details below. And if you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe, join. These videos come out more or less once a week, and be really great to build the channel. In addition, if you want to get some more detail or some thoughts and ideas sort of behind the scenes, you can join some of the Facebook groups. So there is Wargaming World as a Facebook group. There's also Chain of Command World War One, and yeah, lots of great ideas and thoughts and comments taking place on those channels. So it just leaves me to say thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.